Creativity and community are absolutely vital in challenging times. Creativity is also consistently named one of the top skills of the 21st century, especially with the advent of AI. Welcome to Syncreate, a show where we explore the intersections between creativity, psychology, and spirituality. We believe everyone has the capacity to create. Our goal is to demystify the process and expand the boundaries of what it means to be creative. What holds us back? Why do we get stuck? And how can we fully embrace our creativity? We talk with visionaries and change makers and everyday creatives working in a wide range of fields and media, from the arts to science, technology, and business. We aim to illuminate the creative process, from imagination to innovation and everything in between. I'm Melinda Rothouse, and I help individuals and organizations bring their dreams and visions to life.
I'm Charlotte Gulick, and I'm a writer, educator, and writing coach. Melinda and I are the co-authors of a book on the creative process, also called Syncreate. At Syncreate, we're here to support your creative endeavors. If you have an idea for a project or a new venture and you're not sure how to get it off the ground, visit us at syncreate.org. Our book, now available in both print and audiobook format, walks you through the stages of the creative process so you can take action on your creative goals. We offer resources, creative process tools, and coaching to help bring your work to the world. Hello, Syncreators. Welcome to the Syncreate podcast. We have one of our quickies or our creative sparks to just give you a few ideas to think about to kind of get your creativity juices flowing. Today, we're talking about the power of imagination. And we've hinted at this in different ways in our various episodes. But we wanted to really specifically talk about imagination. And I think for me, there's also like the role of imagination right now in this moment. And that I guess probably the baseline for me is I want to make sure that in my own mind, that I'm not limiting what I think is possible.
Yes.
Like is my imagination fed, nourished, flourishing, or is it a little anemic right now? And can I do some things to get it rocking and rolling and thinking bigger? Because I think part of what's happening is divisiveness makes us think in like limiting binaries. And how are we making sure that we have opportunities, probably not every moment, but opportunities to think in transcendent ways and like what is possible? Is it always going to be either or are these third ways? And are we inviting the third way thinking into our lives?
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, I once heard Heather Ashamara, who's a spiritual teacher, talk about, how generally we walk around and we have these kind of blinders on, and like our sense of possibility is like, the horse that has the things it can only see. Like that's our sense of possibility, but in fact, there's this huge range of possibilities, and we have to, I don't know, maybe like make effort to remember that.
And it's small. There's so many implications for this. But thinking about like our social media use, are we looped into I always say it wrong, a logarithm?
Algorithm. A logarithm.
A logarithm that like just reinforcing fear or, like
Definitely.
like how do we make sure that the things that we're surrounding ourselves with aren't adding to that anemic imagination. I heard Ruha Benjamin speak, and and I got her book, this Imagination, that's a manifesto, and she's incredible, really, really incredible. And one of her things is just looking at how technology reinforces disparities.
Yes.
And like inequity and how like who gets represented and what gets perpetuated. And the thing that was really powerful that she talked about is social media use and how the companies don't care about us. And you just said she thinks of social media companies like big tobacco and that users get used.
Mhm.
Um, and so are we and I've been really paying attention to this myself. I don't mean this like, "You shouldn't," but I mean, like, am I examining my own use, again, in my logarithms? Um, yeah, like, keeping me constricted and what is possible. And she talked a lot about the role of play as it is linked to imagination, and how are we going to envision more just societies if we don't play? And this has so many implications, like for us right now as adults, but like children, and who gets recess time and who doesn't, and how do we shrink imagination? And I don't know, it's just such a really powerful thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, and I'll just share this. I was just having a similar conversation the other day with somebody that we'll be having on the show coming up soon, Dr. Tamara Russell, who's based in the UK, and she was. You may have seen this too. There was a major article that came out that basically said how AI specifically reinforces stereotypes and biases and things like that, and resumes that are fed into AI. The ones with the different sounding names or female sounding names, get deprioritized in these algorithms. And yet, all of these major companies are moving more and more to AI for their HR, for hiring. So that's just going to continue, right? Unless we do something about it.
And that's the role of imagination, right? Like, how do we address something that is restricting imagination and restricting who is getting access to opportunity? Um, imagination is the way that we get there. And, it's just like a daily exercise. What do I imagine is possible? And noticing how grand or how small that imagination might be. Um,
Yeah.
that this is a lot related to Afrofuturism
Hmm.
and, how people imagine the future, and a lot of the visual narrative is very white, and that it is, I mean, that word anemic comes to mind, that's very constricted, um, and I don't know if I'm gonna say her name right. So, it's Nichelle Nichols who played Uhura on
Hmm.
Star Trek,
Hmm.
right? And she was the only Black actor on the show, and she wanted to leave, and, Martin Luther King counseled her to stay on the show because it was such a vital, um, role she was playing, that people could imagine Black people in the future.
In
And I think
space.
that
Yeah.
in space, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that and I think, yeah, are we policing our own imaginations?
Hmm.
And if we are, can we just build an awareness around that to be like, "Oh, what have I seen today, on my screens, and how might I bust out of any particular ruts that I've been in, because that can lead to a limited imagination."
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, on this conversation about algorithms and AI and how they perpetuate certain inequities and things like that. It's important to remember that no one's lives are more important than others. Just because you're a tech billionaire doesn't mean that you're better or more important than anyone else. And I think we've got that completely backward in our society right now.
And that there, I think that's another way to think about where we could be paying attention. Imagine how we could pay attention is, how often are we being sold a narrative that some lives are more valuable than others? Who will be in the future? Um, you know, who will who will get the water? Who will get the resources? And yeah, some people won't, but that's okay because they're not the people who are really imagining what's possible. That's not it at all. It's who's controlling the
Right.
resources.
And does everybody just wanna automatically buy into the future that Elon Musk is envisioning? I don't. You know, like we need to put our imaginations to work here if we want to see something different.
Yes, absolutely. Um, there's so many things. And I think that, tech innovation is something to it comes back to that idea of like who is being imagined in what spaces.
Yeah.
Um, and, I think that people may feel like, oh, I'm just someone here and I can't imagine what the tech billionaire is going to do. But I think it comes to like, what do we offer ourselves as a stimulus for um, a, a broad spectrum of humanity? How are our imaginations being engaged?
Yeah, and even on again, we've been talking about this in the past few episodes around power and agency and empowerment. It's like, you know, where do innovations come from? They don't always come from the top down. Often,
Mm-mm.
new ideas or new patents or new inventions or whatever come from people like on the ground doing the work who think, is there a better way to do this? Like, is there a more efficient way to do this? Or, what if, again, like this conversation about what if, what's possible? And, it might be that the next like huge breakthrough comes from, somebody in a humble place, in a humble situation who has a really great idea, and we need to hear those ideas. Just like, it's akin to biodiversity, right? If we like
Mhm.
kill the whole rainforest, we might miss the next cure for cancer, right? Like we need everyone's ideas.
And if you only have one kind of tree, you have a very weak forest,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um, Also, it makes me think about like you saying, like a humble might have humble origins, but also sometimes the people who are making solutions aren't actually talking to the users.
Right. Yeah.
Like desire paths, is that what they're called?
This'll be great. What is it?
Desire paths. So like they'll create a new place and there will be paths and then people don't actually use the
Oh,
walkways. They,
yeah.
like,
They make their own path, and then
yeah.
eventually they pave that
Yes,
path.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, are you talking to the users? Are you imagining from a user perspective, or are you just managing it from a design perspective?
Right, and that just makes it this is kind of a random, but it's tangentially related. It's like, where did our roads come from in the past? And, in the past, like, how did they get to be major thoroughfares? Well, first, they were animal paths, and then there were
Mhm.
people tracking the animal paths, and then they were, like, dirt roads, and eventually, they became super highways, right?
And that's all about the people who it's based in usability.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, and real life use case. Yeah,
yes, um, and that's how we need to make sure we're talking to the real life users as we imagine things.
definitely. So what's our pro tip?
um, and like many of our pro tips, this is a reflection piece. Like, can you pay attention to where you might be limiting your own imagination? Just pay attention to your own thoughts. You're like, oh, that can't be done, or that's not possible.
Or who am
Um,
I to do it? Or who am I to
right.
say something?
And we're not saying that it's on you to change it, but just to notice the thinking and
Mhm.
is the thinking nourished? Is it flourishing, or is it a little tight and maybe understandably maybe a little beat down? But how can we pump it back up so that we're um, imagining possibilities that are more equitable and, I guess, more full of life.
Yeah, and more playful. I mean, I think that's something we also wanted to touch on today. Like, play is so important for imagination. It doesn't have to be so serious all the time, right? And like, who gets to play? Who doesn't get to play? Think about the way children play, and like, can we encourage ourselves to think about possibilities in a more playful way?
Maybe that's one other thing people could do. Notice your playgrounds.
Yeah,
How
what are
many do
your
you see?
playgrounds?
Um, And then if you're really into it and you're able-bodied, maybe go for a swing.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a good swing?
Thank you for joining us today. Find and connect with us on YouTube and social media under Syncreate. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and leave us a review.
And we're recording today at Record ATX Studios in Austin with Charlotte joining us from the Hudson Valley. The podcast is produced in collaboration with Mike Osborne at 14th Street Studios. Thanks so much for being with us, and see you next time.